The White Seal Maid by Jane Yolen. On the North Seashore there was once a fisherman named Murdoch who lived all alone. He had neither wife nor child, nor wanted one, at least that was what he told the other men with whom he fished the Hoff banks. But truth was, Murdoch was a lonely man, at ease only with the wind and waves. And each evening when he left his companions calling out, "Fair wind," the sailors leave, he knew they were going back to a warm hearth and a full bed, while he went home to none, and secretly he longed for the same comfort. One day it came to Murdoch as if in a dream that he should leave off fishing that day and go down to the sea ledge and hunt the seal. He had never done such a thing before, thinking it close to murder, for the seals had human eyes and cried with a baby's voice. Yet though he had never done such a thing, there was such a longing within him that Murdoch could not say no to it. And that longing was like a high, sweet singing, a calling. He could not rid his mind of it, so he went. Down by a gray rock he sat, a long, sharpened stick by his side. He kept his eyes fixed out on the sea, where the white birds sat on the waves like foam. He waited through sunrise and sunset, and through the long, cold night, the singing in his head. Then when the wind went down a bit, he saw a white seal coming far out in the sea, coming towards him, the moonlight riding on its shoulder. Murdoch could scarcely breathe as he watched the seal, so shining and white was its head. It swam swiftly to the sea ledge, and then with one quick push it was up on land, and Murdoch rose then in silence, the stick in his hand. He would have thrown it too. But the white seal gave a sudden shudder, and its skin sloughed off. There stood a maiden cast in moonlight, with the tide about her feet. She stepped high out of her skin, and her hair fell sleek and white about her shoulders and hid her breasts. Murdoch fell to his knees behind the rock, and he would have hidden his eyes, but her cold white beauty was too much for him. He could only stare, and if he made a noise then, she took no notice, but turned her face to the sea and opened her arms up to the moon. Then she began to sway and call. At first Murdoch could not hear the words. Then he realized it was the very song he had been hearing in his head all that day. Come to the edge, come down to the ledge, where the water laps the shore. Come to the strand, seals to the sand, the watery time is o'er. When the song was done, she began it again. And it was as if the whole beach, the whole cove, the whole world was nothing but that one song. And as she sang, the water began to fill up with seals. Black seals and gray seals, seals of every kind. They swam to the shore at her call and sloughed off their skins. They were as young as the white seal maid, but none so beautiful in Murdoch's eyes. They swayed and turned at her singing, and joined their voices to hers. Faster and faster the seal maidens danced in circles of 2s and 3s and 4s. Only the white seal maid danced alone in the center, surrounded by the cast-off skins of her twirling sisters. The moon remained high almost all the night, but at last it went down. At its setting, the seal maids stopped their singing, put on their skins again one by one, went back to the sea one by one, and swam away. But the white seal maid did not go. She waited on the shore until the last one of them was out of sight. Then she turned to the watching man as if she had always known he was there, hidden behind the gray rock. There was something strange, a kind of pleading in her eyes. Murdoch read that pleading and thought he understood it. He ran over to where she stood, grabbed up the sealskin, and held it high overhead. "Now ya be mine," he said. And she had to go with him. That was the way of it. For she was a Selkie, one of the seal folk. And the old tales said it. The Selkie maid without her skin was no more than a lass. They were wed within the week, Murdoch and the white seal maid, because he wanted it. So she nodded her head at the priest's bidding, though she said not a word. And Murdoch had no complaint of her, his Sel, as he called her, short for Selkie, no complaint except this: she would not go down to the sea. She would not go down by the shore where he had found her, or down to the sand to see him in his boat, though often enough she would stare from the cottage door, out past the cove's end, where the inlet poured out into the great wide sea. "Will ye not walk down by the water's edge with me, Sel?" Murdoch would ask each morning. "Or will ye not come down to greet me when I return?" She never answered him, either yea nor nay. Indeed, if he had not heard her singing that night on the ledge, he would have thought her mute. But she was a good wife for all that, and did what he required. If she did not smile, she did not weep. She seemed to Murdoch strangely content. So Murdoch hung up the white seal skin up over the door where Sel could see it. He kept it there in case she should want to leave him, to don the skin and go. He could have hidden it or burned it, but he did not. He hoped the sight of it, so near and easy, would keep her with him, would tell her, as he could not, how much he loved her. For he did love her, his seal wife. It was that simple. He loved her and did not want her to go, but he would not keep her past her willing it, so he hung the skin up over the door. And then their sons were born, one a year, born at the ebbing of the tide, and Sel sang to them, one by one, long, longing, wordless songs that carried the sound of the sea. But to Murdoch she said nothing. 7 sons they were, strong and silent, one born each year. They were born to the sea, born to swim, born to let the tide lap them head and shoulder. And though they had the dark eyes of the seal, and though they had the seal's longing for the sea, they were men, and had men's names: James, John, Michael, George, William, Rob, and Tom. They helped their father fish the cove and bring home his catch from the sea. It was 7 years, and 7 years, and 7 years again, that the seal wife lived with the man. The oldest of their sons was just coming to his 21st birthday, the youngest barely a man. It was a gray day, the wind scarce rising, that the boys all refused to go with Murdoch when he called. They gave no reason, but nay. "Wife," Murdoch called, his voice heavy and gray as the sky. "Wife, whose sons are these? How have you raised them that they say nay to their father when he calls?" It was ever his custom to speak to Sel as if she returned him words. To his surprise, Sel turned to him and said, "Go, my sons be staying with me this day." It was the voice of the singer on the beach, musical and low, and the shock was so great that he went at once and did not look back. He set his boat on the sea, the great boat that usually took several men to row it. He set it out himself and got it out into the cove, put the nets over, and never once heard when his sons called out to him as he went, "Fair wind." But after a bit The shock wore thin, and he began to think about it. He became angry then at his sons and his wife who had long plagued him with her silence. He pulled in the nets and pulled on the oars and started towards home. I, too, can say nay to the sea, he said out loud as he rode the swells in. The beach was cold and empty. Even the gulls were mute. I do not like this, Murdoch said. It smells of a storm. He beached the boat and walked home. The sky gathered in around him. At the cottage door he hesitated but a moment, then pulled savagely on the door. He waited for the warmth to greet him. But the house was as empty and cold as the beach. Murdoch went into the house and stared at the hearth, black and silent. Then, fear riding in his heart, he turned slowly and looked over the door. The sealskin was gone. Sell! Sell! He cried then as he ran from the house. And he named his sons in a great anguished cry as he ran. Down to the sea ledge he went, calling their names like a prayer. James, John, Michael, George, William, Rob, Tom. But they were gone. The rocks were gray as the sky, and at the water's edge was a pile of clothes that lay like discarded skins. Murdoch stared out far across the cove and saw a seal herd swimming. Yet not a herd. A white seal and 7 strong pups. Sell, he cried again. James, John, Michael, George, William, Rob, Tom. For a moment, the white seal turned her head. Then she looked again to the open sea and barked out 7 times. The wind carried the faint sounds back to the shore. Murdoch heard as if in a dream the 7 seal names she called. They seemed harsh and jangling to his ear. Then the whole herd dove. When they came up again, they were but 8 dots strung out along the horizon, lingering for a moment, then disappearing into the blue edge of sea. Murdoch recited the 7 seal names to himself, and in that recitation was a song, a litany to the god of the seals. The names were no longer harsh, but right, and he remembered clearly again the moonlit night when the seals had danced upon the sand. Maidens all, not a man or boy with them. And the white seal turning and choosing him, giving herself to him, that he might give the seal people life. His anger and sadness left him then. He turned once more to look at the sea and pictured his 7 strong sons on their way. He shouted their seal names to the wind. Then he added under his breath, as if trying out a new tongue, "Fair wind, my sons, fair wind."